everybody. Welcome up to the Vinyl Attic. Vinyl Attic on a hot summer night. We're having a heat dome in PDX, Portland, Oregon, where it's 100 degrees. I'm recording this at midnight because it's only about 93 degrees. Sweating, and it's perfect for the album that we're going to talk about. So we're doing this 100 albums that must be in your collection, and not the 100 obvious albums. We're doing 100 ones that are kind of special that true music fans and record collectors and vinyl junkies should have in their collection. So we're finally getting to the Stones. It's taken us a bit, but we're finally getting to the Stones. Rolling Stones, a huge chunk of my collection, belongs to Mick and the boys. And we're not talking about the obvious Stones albums. I mean, one of the obvious, maybe if I had to pick a favorite, thank you, Andy Warhol. That's not Mick, by the way. Sticky Fingers, not Sticky Fingers. We're talking about an album, a Rolling Stones album, that many Stones fans hate. And I want to give it some love. Came out the fall of 1983, Undercover. The last album on Rolling Stones Records. I went to Columbia Records after this one. The last record in the lifetime of original member Ian Stewart, who became sort of their keyboardist on a lot of their records. The first album of the MTV era for the Stones and other people. 1983, I was a junior in college when this came out. Got it the day it came out. And here's why I'm picking this album, because it's often overlooked, but there are moments of sheer brilliance in this record. So the 80s were not that kind to the Stones. I mean, they started off with a bang. Tattoo You, which came out in 81, was the one before this. But Tattoo You was really a bunch of studio outtakes from different periods of the Stones' career in the 70s, even going back to the Mick Taylor days before Ron Wood joined the band. And it just was a fluke that it became such a monster record. And I saw the Stones twice on that tour. I saw them in the fall of 1981 in Atlanta, Georgia, front row center at the Fox Theater with the Stray Cats opening. And then I saw them the next summer in Leeds, England, playing to about 120,000 people with Joe Jackson, the Jay Giles Band, and George Thorogood and the Destroyers. And I was like a zillion miles away, but they were great. And there was a live album that came out from that tour, Still Life. And the first real 80s album that they recorded together was the Undercover album. When people talk about this record, it's the beginning of the end of the really tight working relationship with Mick and Keith. They were really feuding. The Glimmer Twins. This is the first album in a long time that they didn't work with Jimmy Miller. They brought on a new producer, Chris Kimsey, to produce it, and Keith was coming out of his drug addiction, the New Barbarians era, his drug busts, had been in treatment. There are all these stories about Keith getting blood transfusions that take the old drug-addled blood out and put the new blood in. I don't know. I've read his autobiography. It's really brilliant. I still don't know if those rumors are true. So when they made this record, they had two very completely different ideas. Keith wanted a blues rock record, since Tattoo You had done so well in that vein, the Start Me Up vein, and this amazing blues stuff that's on that album. I mean, this one is a monster. Everyone should have it. Mick Jagger wanted to kind of keep up with the trends. He was worried that Stones were becoming too old. I remember referring to them as the Rolling Bones in 1981, and they're still going. Some of them are not with us anymore, but and so he wanted dance music, he wanted reggae, he wanted world music, and so they were at complete loggerheads, as Keith said. They were just not working together. They were writing songs separately, even recording separately. A lot of the actual songwriting in the studio fell on the shoulders of Ron Wood on this album, including his song Pretty Beat Up, which he actually gets songwriting credit on. But what makes this album unique, there's a lot that makes it unique. First of all, it gets political. I mean, the single off this album, Undercover, is about what was happening in Central and South America. I mean, the stories of sort of revolution and guerrilla warfare, especially in places like Argentina with the disappeared, in Chile, in El Salvador, and Nicaragua. As a college student this time, I was very involved in Latin American politics, taking a Latin American politics class at Emory University with Dr. Juan de Aguila. And wearing my Sandinista shirt, and it was very political, but also very violent. We get the most violence since Gimme Shelter. I mean, this is the most violent themed record. There's a song on here called Too Much Blood about serial murderers and mentions the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The videos for this album, produced by Julian Temple, who did Absolute Beginners, one of my all-time favorite movies, were banned. I remember late at night seeing the Undercover video that is recorded, filmed in Mexico, is supposed to be in El Salvador in the video, where Keith is a guerrilla hijacker who kidnaps Mick and puts a bag over his head and shoots him in the head and assassinates him, which are things that were happening. Undercover, there's a less violent version that's more sexual, more sex than violence, that kind of ended up on MTV. But that video was shocking when it came out. MTV was brand new in 1983 for a lot of us, and to see the Rolling Stones murdering each other was a bit shocking. But in that song, because of this weird collision in the band, there's all this stuff going on. In fact, Bill Wyman, the secret is Bill Wyman doesn't even play bass on that record. Sly and Robbie, the reggae stars, Robbie Shakespeare plays bass on it, and Sly Dunbar does percussion on it. It's like from another planet. I mean, it doesn't sound anything like a Stones record. There are some songs on here that are classic Stones. I mean, the end track, It Must Be Hell, is classic, sort of the Keith-driven bluesy rock riff that they've mined all the way into, the record that they put out last year, which I've already forgotten about, the Lady Gaga record. I'll put the image of the album here because I don't even remember. Hackney Diamonds. It was great for a minute. Yeah, you knew Stones album, but it was basically, the lesser-known songs on this album redone over and over and over again, which is what they've been doing for most of the 21st century. The value of this record is sort of twofold. One is we get these videos. Like, the MTV is new, and this idea of acting out the songs. And She Was Hot, which is the second single, has this sort of comedic video where this redheaded temptress is trying to seduce all the members of the band, and their eyes are falling out, and they're getting all crazy because this woman, she was hot. It's just silliness, but it was meant for the MTV audience. So you get sort of this new revitalization of what the Stones are supposed to look like. So we kind of get the Mick caricatures that become associated with him, and everybody who imitates Mick Jagger are these videos where he's doing all this finger pointing that is now sort of quintessential Mick Jagger. That's all sort of generated in this era, this kind of MTV area. That starts, waiting for a friend and Start Me Up, and the songs off Tattoo You kind of were the first things that we saw on MTV, but this was the one. But the other thing, and the reason I wanted to kind of throw this, also the cover was done by the same guy that did Tattoo You. This is my original copy, and it came with stickers. Kind of, I love these interactive covers. I mean, Emotional Rescue, which also had some political themes. I feel like I got to talk about Emotional Rescue at some point. The cover was a poster that folded out. This is, an original. Look at that. You don't find many of those anymore. Interactive cover, and this one had stickers, and the stickers are long gone, but you would peel them off and have these weird images underneath. Is the notion of collision of styles, that conflict is productive. This is the Hegelian dialectic, right? That conflict changes things and produces new things. And that Mick and Keith were in such opposite places when this album came out that there was something happened. Like, something happened. It doesn't sound like any other Stones record. I mean, it was followed up in 1986 by Dirty Work, which people pretty much think is the nadir, the bottom, Nadir, nadir. It's too hot, y'all. He was hot. The worst Stones album, produced by Steve Lillywhite, who done tons of great records, XTC and U2 and all your favorites from the early 80s. That album just sucks. Well, I don't know. Maybe I should re-listen to it. But on this one, the collision, the fact that these two, geniuses of rock and roll who came up together, who, met as kids in grade school, were we're not even speaking to each other, and then something happens because of this idea they're in a completely different place. And I think it is, while there are great Stones albums to follow, Steel Wheels being a personal favorite, that the there's nothing like this that ever comes from them again, where they're really just sort of bringing opposite energy and creating something that is new. Everything else sounds like a Stones album. Hackney Diamond sounds like, oh, so boring. But this one is explosive and unpredictable. Sometimes you get the old favorites. You get the chugga 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 satisfaction vibe, and then sometimes something like Too Much Blood is some weird macabre dance song. Like, where does that come from? So I really love this record. I think it deserves a revisit. I think if you want to be a true Stones fan, this needs to be in your collection. Yeah, you're going to have Exile on Main Street. We get it. Aftermath, all that stuff. But this is the one. This is the one. All right, I just wanted to give a little bit of love to Rolling Stones Undercover. Go to YouTube and look for the original uncensored version of the Undercover of the Night video. If you've ever wanted to see Mick Jagger get murdered, that's your video. And Keith Richards with that cool skull mask. Yeah, Undercover of the Night. There you go. I mean, I've been playing it a lot over the last few days. It's perfect for this heat wave we're in because I feel like I'm in the jungles of South America. All right, that's it. Coming up next, we're going to stay in the 80s for a record that really was a game changer. We use this term post-punk a lot. And what is this? What is the concept of post-punk? We got to talk. There's so many options here, but we got to talk about Sonic Youth, a band that I have loved and seen 1,000 times. We're going to talk about Sonic Youth's 1986 album, Evil. That's going to be next. That's going to be a deep conversation about that great album. But in the meantime, of course, they're still going. They're still on tour right now in 2024. There's funk. They're going to be going. Keith Richards will outlive us all. The Rolling Stones matter. Duh. The Rolling Stones matter. But this album matters. You matter. Let's talk about it.